Hello, my name is George Hune, and in this video I'm going to show you how to add an attribute to a decision model. An attribute is simply one of the criteria or qualities that you're going to be using to prioritize and value individual projects and/or use as constraints for optimizations. Attributes can be reward criteria such as net present value or return on investment, or they can be costs, resource requirements, risk parameters, categories such as business departments or geographic locations, just about anything that you want. Attributes are contained in decision models, and we can see that this decision model already has 4 attributes in it, so we're just going to add another one. The first thing we're going to do is to click the Add Attribute button at the top of the form to open the new attribute form. At the top, the attribute form displays the value or utility curve chart. The fields below the chart are used to add the specific data associated with the attribute. The first thing we're going to do is to name the attribute, and we're going to call this attribute Reward and give it units of millions of dollars. The next thing we're going to do is assign the attribute a weight. The attribute weight indicates the relative influence of that attribute on a project's value. The higher the weight, the greater the influence in the value score for that particular project. In this case, we're going to set a weight of 6,000. A weight of 6,000 indicates that this attribute is twice as influential as an attribute with, say, a weight of 3,000, or 4 times as influential as an attribute with a weight of 1,500. Next, we're going to set our best outcome and worst outcome values. These represent the limits for our project data. We'll set our best outcome to $100 million, which indicates that the highest project reward will be $100 million, and that any projects that have $100 million rewards associated with them would provide 100 value points and would be the most satisfying projects. Next, we'll set the worst outcome to $25 million, which indicates that we're not going to consider any projects with rewards less than $25 million, and projects with a reward of $25 million would contribute 0 value points in the reward category. In other words, we'd still do a project that has a $25 million reward, but it would need to be higher in other attributes for it to be selected. Next, we'll select the value curve that we want to use. We can use a variety of different curves, including straight line, S-curves, like logistics curves, step or incremental curves, or even discontinuous curves, which we'll talk about in another video. Notice that when we select the straight line curve, that it is drawn on the chart automatically. The straight line means that at $25 million, there is 0 contribution of value points to the project, and at $62.5 million in the center, there is 50 value points contributed, and then at $100 million, there are 100 value points. Now, we can adjust this if we want to have a different value curve simply by control-clicking on Windows or command-clicking on Mac where we want the line to intersect at the center. So if we click on the value at 30 and 62.5, the line automatically redraws. This line now represents an increasing returns line. In other words, 30% of the attribute value is realized in the first half of the x-axis, between $25 million and $62.5 million, and 70% of the attribute value is realized in the upper half of the x-axis, between $62.5 and $100 million. In other words, this chart shows a bias towards higher value projects. Next, we want to add our default project values. These are the values that are displayed in a project form by default when you want to add a new project. So we'll set the default project outcomes to $62.5 million, and we'll set the default uncertainty to 5%. Now we'll click Save to save the changes, and then we'll click Close to close the form. Notice how the new attribute appears in the decision model form, and we can see the values that we added, including the weight, best outcome, worst outcome, default outcome and uncertainty, and the curve description. Notice also how the weight is proportional to rank. In other words, the higher the weight, the higher the rank. Now that we've added our attributes, we need to create a portfolio and begin adding projects. We'll do that in the next video. Thanks for watching.